Hello everyone, my name is Prince Verma and welcome to the YouTube channel of Victory IAS. We are discussing the topics of environment and ecology that have been seen in the current affairs for the past 2-3 years. Today's topic of discussion is pertaining to wildlife protection, a very important topic for the prelims as well as mains examination. However, we are going to broadly adhere to the requirements of the prelims examination, but this knowledge is going to be highly useful for the mains examination as well. I'll tell you, but mainly will revolve around the requirements of the prelims examination. Today we are going to take up 4 topics related to this wildlife protection, and those 4 topics are: one is related to a global report given by IPBES, which is a platform for the protection of biodiversity and ecosystem services. We'll talk about that in detail. And then second, we are going to talk about certain additions in the number of flora and fauna in the country. So certain additions have been done in flora and fauna. We'll see that. Third, we'll take one topic related to Australia's plan to protect the extinction rate that has been observed in Australia. And the last topic is related to AMI. So these 4 topics we are going to discuss today in detail. So let's begin with the first topic. So talking about the first one. So see, IPBES has released an assessment report. So basically IPBES releases a number of global assessment reports based on a number of themes. Those themes are broadly pertaining to biodiversity conservation, and ecosystem services. So revolving around this theme, biodiversity conservation and ecosystem services, a number of assessment reports are released by IPBES every now and then. If you want to know the full form of IPBES is a intergovernmental science policy platform on biodiversity and ecosystem services. So you might not have heard of this term IPBEC, हो सकता आपने ना सुना हो, but you must have definitely heard of a term called IPCC. If you have read something about in environment and ecology, certain intergovernmental platforms, this is one platform that you must have read of, IPCC, which tells us about the different kinds of developments and issues pertaining to climate change. Its full form is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So for the issue called climate change, the platform is IPCC, and for the issues pertaining to biodiversity loss and issues pertaining to ecosystem services, the platform is IPBES. So talking about the background of IPBES, you should know that in the late 20th century, you must have seen that a number of developments at the global level in order to protect the environment, in order to minimize the increasing rate of temperature. The global temperature of the earth is increasing. So in order to minimize those problems, a number of developments related to environment happened in late 20th century. So if you remember 1972 Stockholm Conference, and then in 1992, this one is very important, Rio Summit, which is also called Earth Summit, and its formal name is United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. After 1992 Rio Summit, if you know, there is development of a convention called UNFCCC, UNFCCC, United Nations Framework for Convention on Climate Change. So this is a very important convention which holds conference of parties every year, which is the highest decision making body with respect to this platform. And then the result of this Rio Summit, also called Earth Summit, is also something called CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity. So a number of developments happened in order to conserve the environmental problems, in order to minimize the environmental problems. So in the backdrop of this, you must have heard of something, an important development that happened in 2005 called Millennium Development Goals, MDGs, which were valid up to 2015. And in this backdrop of this Millennium Development Goals, in 2012, an intergovernmental panel, an intergovernmental science policy platform on biodiversity and ecosystem services came into picture. So this is how IPBES come into picture. So there have been several developments which were trying to deal with the problems related to environmental degradation, and in that development, in that backdrop only, this platform came into existence. Now this platform, since 2014, it has been releasing several theme based global assessment reports. So basically, different kinds of biodiversity loss or challenge to ecosystem services that are being faced at global level, the report is given by IPBES. So this body you should always remember. And then coming to with respect to this body, we'll come to the certain other facts as well with respect to this body. But before that, let's talk about the assessment report, the one which is the news is related to. So this assessment report is related to the sustainable use of wild species. So this report is mainly based on the theme called sustainable utilization of the wild species. So wild species are nothing but are the species that cannot be domesticated, that are not non-domesticated, non-cultivated, but are directly related to human beings. They are important for the survival of the human beings. So for those wild species, a global assessment report has been presented by the IPBES. One question in prelims could be, this sustainable use of wild species pertains to which all species? So it includes plant species, it includes animals, it includes fungi, it includes algae. So these four categories have been included under this sustainable use of wild species, which is a report by the IPBES. So I'm pretty sure that you can now figure out a number of prelims question over here. Now moving further, the findings of this report. So as I already said that the report provides us information at the global level. So this report provides us information at the global level. First, it is talking about there is some impact on biodiversity and ecosystem and wild species ecosystem. So there is impact on biodiversity, and major impact is through climate change, landscape change, seascape change, pollution and invasive alien species. See, it is not talking about anything new. If you know that most of the problems related to biodiversity, these are the factors which are responsible for. But let's say you get a question in the mains examination, you should definitely quote this IPBES and its assessment report. Only if you quote this name and then you write, see, these are the general things only, which we already read in the classroom. But once you quote this, these things become more valuable. So that is the reason that it has impact on biodiversity and wild species ecosystem, which is mainly because of climate change, landscape change, seascape change, obviously pollution, invasive species. Anyway, then second thing it is talking about unsustainable exploitation. Over here there is one caveat. You should know that it is the main threat to wild species in marine ecosystems. Do not forget that the theme is based on sustainable use of wild species. So it is targeting the wild species only. This report is pertaining to wild species. So over here it is saying that unsustainable exploitation is primarily the reason for threat in marine ecosystem. And after marine ecosystem, it is to terrestrial ecosystem, and in the end, it is the freshwater ecosystem. So there could be a question to arrange them in the highest degree of threat. So highest degree of threat belongs to marine ecosystem. See, you cannot figure out such questions if you get in the examination that कौन से ecosystem पे सबसे ज्यादा impact होगा. तो such facts you only get from the reports like this. Okay, so that is why it is very important for the prelims examination, and such questions have been asked in the prelims as well. Then it is talking about unsustainable hunting, which is part of obviously the unsustainable exploitation only. So unsustainable hunting is going on of the wild mammal species, and then obviously logging, unsustainable practice pertaining to logging and gathering of different species, especially the plant species pertaining to cacti, cycads and orchids. So these are the main threats which is pertaining to the unsustainable exploitation. So now coming to the next finding, talking about the livelihood, the report also has given some insight about the impact on the livelihood. So it is saying that small scale fisheries support over 90% of 120 million people. Do not forget that this is the data at the global level. This is not the population of India. This is the data at the global level. So it is saying that nearly 90% of the 120 million population are receiving support from small scale fisheries, and of those 90%, half of the people are women. So once you talk about women empowerment and its linkage with the sustainable development, these points you can any day use. But anyway, let's talk about other findings of the report. The report finds that 34%, nearly one third of marine wildlife is overfished. So any day if you get a question on unsustainable practice in the marine ecosystem, this is one that you can quote any day. Moreover, remember this fact for the prelims examination as well. Moreover, 50,000 wild species globally can meet the needs of billions of people. So that is what I said in the beginning when I was giving you the definition of wild species. These wild species play a very significant role in meeting the needs of the billions of population of humans, and then 70% of the world's poor population was directly dependent on wild species. So these are the facts that you should keep in mind, that they are directly dependent, and that too 70% of the population. It means that these wild species have huge importance when it comes to survival or meeting the needs of the human beings. So that is why this report is very important. And obviously the on the indigenous population, especially the tribal population, the PVTGs, particularly vulnerable tribal groups, the sustainable use of wild species is central to their identity, their existence, and their livelihood. You should know that these people, especially the tribals and the PVTGs, in the last session I talked about PVTGs in detail. So just have a look at that video. But you should know that these people who are residing in the forest areas, they are in harmony with the nature. And how they are in harmony with the nature? Because it is central to their identity. That is the place that they want to live. Then that is important for their existence. They are dependent for livelihood, for shelter, for all those things that are dependent on wild species, including plants as well as animals. So these are the different reports pertaining to the global assessment report released by IPBES. Now let's talk about something about IPBES. Certain recommendations have been given. It is only important for the means examination, not for the prelims. So let's have a look at the recommendations as well once. So first recommendation, empower indigenous communities. Obviously, because these local population, the tribals and the PVTGs, they are in harmony with the nature because it is central to their identity, their livelihood, their existence. So that is why these are the people, first of all, they have the know-how that how the biodiversity could be protected. They have the traditional knowledge base. Moreover, they cannot afford to lose these wildlife because existence of the biodiversity is pertaining to their own existence. So that is why empower these indigenous communities in order to make sure that biodiversity is conserved. That is the very good recommendation. So in fact, you will also talk about these recommendations if you get a question in the mains examination. But do remember that if you quote IPBES report, then this makes more sense, it will fetch more marks. Then second point, robust fishery management. Obviously, that unsustainable practice wherein 34% of the fisheries is practiced through unsustainable ways. So that is not going to help. So there has to be robust management when it comes to pisciculture. So that is what it is saying, that Atlantic bluefin tuna population has been rebuilt and is now fished within sustainable levels. So these are the good examples of sustainable practices of certain species, certain fish species. So you should remember this tuna, Atlantic bluefin tuna. Then effective regulation. Obviously, there are different rules for the management of the marine ecosystem, terrestrial ecosystem. We have Wildlife Protection Act. We have Biological Diversity Act 2002. We have a number of acts, but their effective regulation and implementation is what is the concern. So obviously that is another recommendation. Then obviously other measures to save wild species, that is the integration of diverse value system, equitable distribution of cost, benefits, changes in cultural norms, then social values, all those general arguments they have written. Okay, moving further. Yes, it has written certain things. I think I have already given you the details of how this IPBES has been formed. You should also remember this fact that its secretariat is in Germany. It is in Bonn. So this is the city of Germany. So just remember this. Other than that, I have already discussed that it is an independent intergovernmental body established in 2012 with the objective of strengthening the research, evidence-based policy making for conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity. So ultimate idea is that sustainable and scientific research-based practices are being used for the sustainable utilization of the biodiversity and the ecosystem services. You must have heard of the ecosystem services. There are four types of ecosystem services. There are four types of ecosystem services. This has been already asked in the prelims examination once. So read about it in detail. I am just giving you the names of the ecosystem services. One is called provisioning service. One is called regulating service. Provisioning service means the food, timber, all those things that are directly available to the human beings from the ecosystem. Regulating services, environmental regulation, climate regulation. Then supporting services includes the nutrient cycles, all those things. Groundwater recharge, all those things are done by ecosystem. And the fourth is the aesthetic service, or it is also called cultural service. So these are the four categories of the services provided by the ecosystem. And for these, in order to avail these services, you need to protect the environment, you need to protect the ecosystem and the biodiversity. Just read about it in detail. Okay, I am saying that questions have been asked from this, will be asked again. Anyway, move further. Let's talk about the second news. So, second news is more of factual news, but again, species are very important when it comes to environment and ecology, biodiversity conservation, wildlife protection. These are very important news. So, in 2021, in the year 2021, some 540 species, you should remember that it is more than 500, close to 550 species of fauna. Fauna means animals. They are talking about the animal species, have been added to total India's list, and by doing so, India is now hosting some 1,03,258 species, animal species. So just remember that it is over 1 lakh, close to 1,03,000. Since it is a new edition, so that is why this fact becomes important. Then obviously floral species have also been added, some 315. So over here animal species nearly 540, or roughly you can remember 500. And when it comes to faunal species, the floral species, which is the plant species, it is close to 300. Not the exact number, obviously. If you can remember the exact number, that is well and good, but you should roughly have the idea that it has nearly 300. And if you get in the examination some data close to 300, you should take it as probability is that it should be correct. So the floral species is close to 55,000. Faunal species is more than 1 lakh. So one is that nearly floral species is nearly half of the faunal species that are found in India. That is the another way of writing the same thing. Then the important species that have been added, certain species you should know, that we'll talk about later on. So again, this 540 faunal species, certain are the new discoveries. New discoveries are 406, and then new records are 134. Not that important, but again, if you get somewhere in books, you should know that these are the facts, typical facts. Again, similar to floral species, of those 315, some 298 species as well as 17 intra-specific taxa which are new for Indian flora. Out of this, 204 are new for the science, and 125 are new distributional records from the country. Okay, moving further. The new discovered mammals, these names you should remember. Those additions, nearly 500 species in fauna, nearly 300 to be exact, 315 in flora. And now the certain important mammals that you should know, which are newly discovered. UPSC has every now and then framed questions pertaining to such new additions. So first thing, Crucidaura Narcondemica. So Narcondam is an island basically in Andaman and Nicobar. In northern part of Andaman and Nicobar, if you know, this is broadly Andaman and Nicobar, and over here there is an island called Narcondam. So this new species has been discovered over there, Crocidura. Just remember the name, and it has been discovered in Narcondam. So that is why it has the suffix as Narcondamica. Anyway, so it is a mammal. Remember that it is a mammal. Animal species belonging to mammal. It is a white toothed shrew. So remember these facts. Obviously, I told you it is found or discovered in Narcondam Island of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Nicobar Islands would be downside. Okay. So then another reptile, a newly discovered reptile. This was the mammal. Boiga whiteacre is the newly discovered species of reptiles in 2021. First, Boiga whiteacre, it is a reptile, first most important thing, and then it belongs to, it is also called whiteacre's cat snake. So remember that it is a cat snake, and it was discovered from the Western Ghats in Tamil Nadu. So you should remember that it is found or discovered in Western Ghat, especially in southern part. Okay, Tamil Nadu part. Then there is another group, Hymenoptera group. The greatest number of new discoveries belong to faunal group. Remember that greatest number of this belongs to faunal group. And obviously just read this, otherwise it is okay. Moving further. Not very important things over here, but yes, you should know that the major role has been played by the institution called Geological Survey of India. This Geological Survey of India, India's contribution to world species, you should know that India accounts for nearly 6.1% of the global faunal species. So those 1,03,258 faunal species account for nearly 6% of the total faunal species across the world. About Geological Survey of India, again you should know that these are the institutions that remain in news every now and then. So again, could be question any day. You should know that it has been formed before independence, way back in 1916. Obviously, it is currently under the ministry called Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. It is a premier organization in geological research and studies for promotion of survey, exploration and research. So basically, they resort to survey, they resort to exploration, research in order to read about, in order to study about the faunal species of India. Okay, so do remember it is about the faunal species. We have Botanical Survey of India for the floral species. Anyway, so reasons, there are certain reasons which are very rich in, the faunal species and the floral species, that is Western Ghats, northeastern region obviously. So these two contributes 28% of the total discoveries that have been seen. So over here there should be full stop. And when it comes to state level data, although Kerala is a small state, but it is the first state to have 51 taxa followed by Maharashtra, and then Arunachal Pradesh. So these are the facts with respect to certain additions that have been seen with respect to flora and fauna in the country in the year 2021. Moving further, the next topic. The next topic is pertaining to Australia's plan to stop extinction crisis. You should know that once the Britishers started the colonization in different parts of the world, not only Britishers, a number of European countries, including France, Germany, and a number of other countries, Spain, including Britain, obviously, when they started colonial exploration or making colonies across the world, you should know that they carried with them a number of species, and those species were native to Europe. And later on, those species, where they were brought by these Europeans, they became alien species over there and invasive species over there. Moreover, with respect to Australia, you should know that in Australia, because of a number of factors, because of its unique location, because of its unique insulation, it is the continent which has experienced maximum rate of extinction of the species. So if any continent is experiencing biodiversity loss, environmental degradation, the maximum rate of environmental degradation, biodiversity loss or extinction rate is maximum in the continent, and fortunately this continent happens to be a country also. So it is happening in Australia. So because of that, in order to deal with that problem, in fact Australia is said to be extinction capital, mammal extinction capital of the world, because of this rate of extinction in Australia. So this tag has been given to Australia. So because of this, obviously the government of Australia is trying to come up with a plan in order to stop the further extinction. So let's have a look what government of Australia is saying. You should know certain facts about Australia. If you know the map of Australia, you'll find somewhat like this. This is the Australian map. So over here we have Great Barrier Reef. Over here this entire coast is Great Barrier Reef, heavily rich in obviously coral ecosystem. But again, because of climate change, because of a number of factors, environmental degradation, marine pollution, these corals are dying at very fast rates. So that is what I'm saying. The mammal extinction rate in Australia is fastest compared to any part of the world. So now let's see the plan of the government of Australia. Australia announced a plan to halt extinction of a species. Australia plans to halt the loss of any more species and end its status as the mammal extinction capital of the world. That is what that is what is their bone of contention is. So more than 100 threatened animals and plant species have been targeted under this plan. It does not mean that only 100 threatened animals and plant species are there in Australia which are threatened. No, there are nearly 2000 such species which are threatened in Australia itself, but they are targeting only the most threatened ones which have highest degree of threat. So only hundreds have been targeted in the beginning with the idea that they want to stop the further extinction of the mammals, of the plants as well as the animals. Obviously, it will be prioritized under new conservation strategy. Earlier this year, a report found that Australia's environment is declining at a shocking pace. So these things we have already discussed. Many native animals, plants face threat, including habitat loss. Obviously, this is the major reason for the decline in the biodiversity or any kind of ecosystem, habitat loss, because of agricultural needs, because of industrial needs, because of urbanization. So The natural dwelling place of the animals have been lost because of the increasing needs and the wants of the human beings. Then invasive species, invasive pests, weeds, these are another reason for the threats to the biodiversity of Australia. Obviously, this is the biggest threat when it comes to the present level of biodiversity loss. And then more frequent destructive natural disasters. Australia is prone to tsunami. So all those things are the reasons for the high rate of extinction in Australia. Then moving further, the strategy comes after the State of Environment report found that Australia has the highest instances of extinction in the world. So that is what I said. So there is a State of Environment report that is saying that Australia has the highest instances of extinction. This is the first time that Australian government has announced a zero extinction target. It is important because it has been done for the first time. It is a 10-year strategy. Remember that it is a 10-year strategy which aims to prioritize obviously the conservation. The 10-year strategy aims to improve obviously the environmental resilience to climate change because it is the greatest threat, building insurance populations of some important species in predator free zones and better monitor existing populations. It also seeks to protect a third of Australia's land mass which is deteriorating at a rapid pace due to habitat loss, invasive plants, all those things that we discussed. Then the protection of at least 30% of the land masses under environmental law ensures safety of vulnerable species and their habitats. Then 20 areas with high density of threatened species will be specifically targeted. Obviously, I am saying that they are not targeting all the 2000 species which are threatened in Australia. So they are targeting some hundreds. So obviously, they have certain priority areas. The strategy includes improving climate resilience. All these things we have already discussed. So this would be all about this news. Write certain important things that it is for the first time Australian government is doing a 10-year strategy. Why this strategy was needed? Because of the rapid rate of mammal extinction in Australia, which is highest in any part of the world. Anyway, then the plan is criticized for a number of reasons. This is for the mains, but I'll take just 2 minutes. It is criticized for a number of reasons, because first of all, they have taken some 110 priority species, around 2000 species. So again, this is a concern. It is unclear how this plan seeks to protect those species which have not been recognized as priority. They have given priority to 110. How about the others? The goal of the plan are difficult to attain unless funding is increased. See, it will come at a huge cost. It will have a huge burden at the government exchequer. So that is the another concern. Experts have been expecting that this will take around $1.69 billion US dollars to address the problem of extinction of Australia. So anyway, moving further to the last topic. Again, typically important for the prelims examination, very small topic, the ambition on melting ice. That is AMI, ambition on melting ice. So this coalition, this is an initiative by two important countries in the world, Chile and Iceland. Chile is a country in the western part of South America. Iceland, we know that northeast of North America, we have Iceland, Greenland, and below that Greenland in the south east part, we have Iceland. So these two countries have joined together uh, with the ambition of protecting the thawing and the melting of the ice sheets, glaciers, not only in the polar areas, not only in the mountainous areas, but they have impacts in different parts of the world. That is why this was proposed, this coalition was proposed in COP 27 of 2022. This is COP of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This COP 2027 was held in Egypt. Then 2023 COP was held in Dubai, and 2024 was held in Baku. Baku is in Azerbaijan, and 2025 will be held in November in Brazil. So this could be a question in match the following type based questions. This could be asked. This is a potential area for the prelims examination, but you should know that in COP 2027, in the year 2022, two countries came together. They co-chaired basically and invited a number of national governments to be part of this coalition in order to take efforts so that the melting of glaciers, ice sheets could be controlled to some extent by obviously the international cooperation and coordination. So, the last slide of the day, the melting of cryosphere. Cryosphere is nothing but the frozen part of the earth. So all those areas which have ice sheets or the water is frozen, all those areas are part to be cryosphere. Like we have lithosphere, rocky areas, hydrosphere, water areas, atmosphere, areas of air. So similarly, the areas of uh, the frozen sphere of the earth is called cryosphere. So these are the frozen water due to climate change. It is a global threat whose impact will not be restricted only to mountains, but not only to polar areas, but to different parts of the world. This melting cryosphere, all those parts which are frozen till now because of climate change, because of global warming, their melting will occur. The thermal expansion of the ocean water, of the sea water will occur, will be always seen as a major contributors to sea level rise. And if sea level rises, you know that Indonesia is shifting its capital from Jakarta because of increase in the sea level. It is anticipated that in the times to come, Jakarta might get underwater because of the sea level rise. So obviously it is a concern for different island countries of the world and the other responsible countries of the world. So what is the objective? AMI group aims to ensure the impacts of cryosphere loss are understood by the political leaders at the national level as well as the public, and not only within the mountain and the polar regions but throughout the planet. So that is their target. They have started this coalition, Chile and Iceland. So there are many other countries. The latest addition, if I tell you, in 2023, Germany and Palau has been added under this coalition. So if you want to remember, India is not party to this coalition. You should know that India is not party. In fact, there are very few South Asian countries. Nepal is there. If you want to remember, Nepal was in news recently also. So, but yes, it is part of this coalition. I don't know how they are going to manage considering the ongoing protest in Nepal, but yes. So this would be all for the day. Thank you so very much. Have a great day.